How is everybody today? This is such a small Tea Party crowd. No, I'm kidding. This is fantastic for Sheboygan. I mean, we get crowds like this occasionally in Chicago, and to see something like this in Sheboygan just goes to show how far ahead of the curve you are here in Wisconsin. Heartland Institute that I work for is not out of Washington, D.C. We're actually out of Chicago, of all places. And so we're based out of there, but we handle policy across the country. How many people like the idea of cap and trade? The Heartland Institute was one of the primary movers in getting cap and trade stopped with our climate change conferences. And I aimed at an education reform, try to do the same thing for education that we did for climate change and stopping that. So I'm going to take you on a rocket ride really quickly on education. I want you to kind of follow along with me here, because I want to have some main takeaways, and then I want to talk about winning the future, because that's where we are right now, is in the process of winning the future because of groups like this and people like you. So you got to know, to fix a problem, you actually got to know where you stand, and I'm going to tell you where you stand on education. So I want you to remember a few key points from this. Number one, the system that we have today in education is beyond reform. It's beyond race to the top. It's beyond no child left behind. It's beyond little tweaking changes at the district level. What we got to do about education is transform it. We have to transform it into an entirely new kind of system, and I'm going to talk about that in a few seconds. Here's the other thing you have to remember. No amount of money, no amount of more money is going to fix it. The United States of America spends more money per child than any OECD nation, any nation, every nation on this earth. We spend more money per child, and what's our output? We're actually educating a group of people who don't, they know how to protest, and they know how to maybe get on the internet and look up websites, but they have no idea about the founding of this country, about ideas and how this country was developed. So here's what we have in our education system. Remember this. What we have is a government education complex. It's just like the military-industrial complex, only nowhere near as effective. Our military, there might be some waste and some expensive toilet seats and $800 hammers and weapon systems that aren't needed, but last time I checked, we had the best military on earth. Do we have the best education system on earth? No. Well, I'm going to tell you how fast and how effectively we can get one. Not in 20 years, not in 25 years, but literally overnight. What we have to do with the government education complex is we need to transform it, and you transform it by dismantling it. And we got to dismantle it by using some of these so-called silver bullets. I don't have to go into details on tuition tax credits. They're a good idea. I don't have to go into details on vouchers. We know that vouchers are a good idea. We know that they work. And I don't have to go into detail on charter schools, because charter schools are a pretty good idea. They're not a perfect solution, but they're a good solution that starts the process. The one thing I want to quickly take 10 seconds and talk about is digital education, online learning. How many of you have a smartphone? With a smartphone, you can literally have the sum of human knowledge beamed to your phone in the form of a text message, in the form of a video, in the form of a lesson plan, or in the form of a test that you could take to prove that you've mastered knowledge. With the digital framework that we're building in this country, we can literally provide an education for your kids, for grown-ups, for anybody who wants to learn anything in a just-in-time fashion, over the internet, over your iPads, over your laptops, and yes, occasionally in a classroom. And we can do it for a lot less money than we're spending on the bureaucracy we have now. There's another really important little technique that is coming out, and this is some of the good news in education reform and why it's going to move so quickly. Turns out a lot of our friends on the left have they've figured it out. They've figured out that you can't fund the education of a poor child in the inner city when you're funding a massive, bloated, wasteful, greedy bureaucracy. And make no mistake, that's just not the teachers' unions. That's the entire DOE at the federal level. It's the state boards of education. And it's also all 14,000 school districts in the United States of America with bloated administrators, bloated coordinators, bloated support staff, none of which is needed to deliver education. So here's a nifty little piece of public policy that a bunch of Democrats invented in California. It's called the parent trigger. Imagine this. If your child is attending a failing school, the parents can get together, sign a petition, and they can flip that school into a charter or some other kind of reform. Now, if Democrats are coming up with an idea like that in a place like California, we can certainly get something like that going in Wisconsin, in Indiana, and all the other places that are moving very rapidly on reforms right now. And it empowers parents, and that's the key to getting to transforming the education system. So those are all the different things that are going on out there. And like with education, with all the different things happening there, it's also happening in Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. All the answers to all these problems come with a really simple solution. And we have to do a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of work to get to that solution. But what is that solution? We disempower the failing, expensive, greedy, public employee monopolies that have taken over our lives, and we start empowering the citizens with choices, and they're going to be able to make the solutions and find the solutions better than any bureaucracy. And just so you all know, that's the key to all of this. The future is ours. The future belongs to the people that make up the Tea Party, to the people that make up the 9/12 groups, to the people that make up all of the Patriots groups out there, because we're the ones that actually have the answers. And we're not talking about, oh, we're going to zero out government and go back to the Corn Laws of Britain in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a sustainable, workable support system for the people of America inside a framework of something really simple that we all believe in. Constitutional government, limited government, and free markets and freedom to choose how we want to pursue our happiness. Now, last time I checked, those were pretty much the principles of our founding fathers. And last time I checked, I don't think they were extremists. I don't think they were people who were foaming at the mouth to destroy government. They were the people who made government work for the first time ever. And we're on the cusp of having that in the future again. And here's how to do it. Whether it's education reform, whether it's Social Security, whether it's cap and trade, whether it's energy policy, no matter what it is, we have it within our hands for the really simple model. And it's called the Evangelical Model. Not necessarily one religion or another, but we need to become evangelical about what it is we stand for. So when our friends on the left start saying, I disagree with this, or you're doing this, or you're bad, instead of sitting there going, socialism, and you're a commie cretin, I got an idea. Why don't you invite them to your Tea Party meeting? We got a really good speaker from this organization or that organization, and they're going to talk about education. They're going to talk about energy policy. And you invite those people, and you talk to them. And right now, at this moment in time, here's a little trick I like, or a little thing I like to do. How many people at this meeting, show of hands, never showed up to a political event until maybe the last year and a half or 2 years? That's why we're going to win. Because across the country, millions of liberals, people who are our neighbors, are starting to question their blue model of oversized government, of never-ending taxation. And we have the opportunity right now to say to them, hey, I know where you're coming from. I know what you want. You don't want to destroy the world. You just want to have this kind of a decent government. I've got a better answer. Come to my Tea Party meeting. We've got somebody on that. We don't have to scream at them. We need to give them answers, and we've got the answers. So that's where the future lies, in communicating with people. Win their hearts and minds. Invite them to our events. And a couple of different things you can do on that notion right here in Wisconsin. There's a group that's forming. I think it even has a Wisconsin coordinator, but it's called Tea for Education. And they're going around, they're going to be doing a lot of different work on the education issue, and they're going to have events and speakers. I might even be one of them. There's also another group called National School Choice Week. How many people have heard about the movie The Cartel? On the third week of January is National School Choice Week. You can get the Cartel movie. You can invite people to your home, maybe 5 or 10 of your neighbors, and say, hey, I got a movie I want to watch, and afterwards we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. And they're going to watch that movie, and you won't need to scream at them or engage in a 10-week battle on education reform. They're going to watch that movie, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, what can I do? And then you're going to tell them. And this is how we win the future. And let me tell you, on education, there's a lot of people out there in the audience, and they're saying probably something like, you know, Bruno, great speech, like what you're saying, but I've seen how powerful the unions are, and I don't think we can beat them. Last month, our referendum passed, and so on and so forth. Well, here's my answer to that. Everybody thought Scott Walker was going to get kicked out of office and a recall next year because of what he did on here in Wisconsin, making this state ground zero. And he won one election in a proxy, he just won another election in a proxy, and he's still standing, and he's probably going to stay standing because the tide has shifted